PowerPoints. I'm pretty sure PowerPoints are dead, kind of like radio, kind of like newspapers. I remember PowerPoints growing up. That was like our hottest topic. We had to learn about it. In college, we presented 100% on PowerPoints. I personally have not used a PowerPoint in years. But today, our expert on PowerPoints will be Emily, and she's going to divulge, obviously, how she got to where she's at, but why PowerPoint is still a thing, and probably why you should hire her, because I will be if I need to do a PowerPoint. Without further ado, Emily, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. That was such a sweet introduction. I loved it. You're right.
Well, good.
Yeah,
Before we dive in and give everyone the secrets of PowerPoint, which you're going to have to turn my vision on that one, but
yeah.
Let's talk through how you even got to where you're at today. Let's start from the beginning.
I mean, the way beginning, or like where I started in design?
Yeah, right out of the womb. I want to know how it felt,
Yeah. Okay, so I was just a child that broke everything. Why? Because I had this creative curiosity. Now I can articulate it as that. And I wanted to see how things work. I wanted to understand what was underneath. Like literally, I remember like piggy banks and picking them up and wanting to know how you got the money out, right? But like, I was also the biggest klutz I've ever, well, now my daughter follows in me, but like we're two of the biggest klutzes. So like I'd be holding this thing in a store and it would drop. And now my mom would buy it and then I would have to figure out a way to like use it or not feel as guilty about it, right? So it kind of created this, like it was this creative curiosity of how things worked and put together. And I just think that was something that like was innate in who I am and who I wanted to be. I also have this empathy for the world and this wonder about how things work. So like that combination put me on this path to ask a lot of questions, to get curious about how things work, and also to like show up and help people just smile more. Again, these are just my personality traits. What I have learned over my 42 years of life is I have figured out and adapted to, which within each season or each age frame, how to cultivate both of those curiosity, like the curiosity and the skill set to provide and to help people. I have this mission that I wrote a couple of years ago. I want to be a magical badass. It's kind of like a unicorn, but cooler. It's rooted in love and kindness. My idea is to sprinkle joy wherever I go, but more importantly, it's to empower people to feel confident and to shine their light brighter, right? Like we don't get dim. Like the room doesn't get dimmer when I spread my light. It actually starts to illuminate more. And so I fell into this, I used to think PowerPoint was a bad word too. So you're not hurting my feelings. I fell into this world of PowerPoint because PowerPoint is a platform that people didn't like, but they really needed it. And I worked in the agency world for a long time. And I worked and with marketing, right? You're creating these campaigns, you're making people do something, you're feeling something. But I never knew what they did at shelf when they purchased it, how they felt, what they responded to. But I did know how my clients responded to our presentation. And there was just something really cool about connecting with somebody who, and how they responded when it resonated with them and what that meant and whether they were able to move that campaign forward or not, right, was kind of out of my control. But I started to get really curious. I started to raise my hand for all new business pitches. Anytime we needed to sell something to the client, I wanted to be part of a team. I love the storytelling aspect of it. I love the concept of leading your brain or the audience through this really articulate and fine-tuned, story so that they feel something, so that they think something, and then they do something at the end. And I just literally kept asking questions, kept offering to help. And I had a small agent, or it wasn't even a small agent, it was a tech startup. They were a bunch of data scientist geeks. I love data too. I just think it's super fun and it gives you a lot of like grounding purpose. And they were like, we need help. Obviously we're data scientists. We don't know what we're doing. Our VCs aren't, our pitches isn't resonating. How can you help? And within that first presentation, they're like, we're sold. I freelanced for them for a year, and then they offered me a full-time position, and I haven't gone back to agency world or really working for anybody else since.
That's awesome. Awesome. So we talked about off camera just a little bit of like the value of your services, my services. And I tell people this all the time, regardless of what they are as a business owner, where they are at life, you need to figure out if you value yourself and what you value yourself as. Because if you can't answer that, then it doesn't matter like who you go to work for, what clients, everyone's going to take advantage of you because you don't actually value yourself. Where in life did that trigger for you that like, I know who I am. I might be a certain way that's not normal, but this is me. I love me and this is my value to myself. Do you know like when that was or like what kind of like triggered in your brain for that?
So no, but I think what I did know is that I like to help people feel good, be happy. And I just have always exuded, to be honest, a really, maybe a cool confidence. Maybe people wouldn't say it's cool. I used to think it was like, you know, you wanted to stand out, you wanted to be different, but you wanted to make your presence known. And I loved being part of that, or being in a group that we did that. I was a cheerleader in high school, right? I was on boards of things. Like, I like to collaborate and bring things together. But I think, you know, my journey to really getting curious about who I was started 5 years ago, when I went out on my own. Actually, it's kind of timely, but I started a health journey, and I started from the inside out. And now, and I still meet with I actually talked to her earlier today. I still meet with my health coach every week. I talk for 15 to 20 minutes because I need that outward conversation, that verbal processing, that reassurance that, like, it's not going to be perfect, even though I'm always going to strive. Like, what am I, a recovering perfectionist? But the idea that, like, I know I'm good at things. And when I can say I'm good at things, it helps me let other people know that they're good at things. And that's the magic that I love to share. Again, like we kind of said, the idea that I can help somebody have more confidence, which then in turn lets them shine brighter, do their work better, feel more confident. And whether they take mine or they borrow my confidence in them, it's such a win-win. Have you heard of the book, 15 Commitments of a Conscious Leader by Jim Detner? Okay, so 2023 was really tough for consulting. And I took that year to reflect. What did I like doing? What did I want to do? What was I good at? And if I'm going to tell people I'm available, I want to tell them I want to do the work I want to do. I got this book introduced to me, and he starts talking about this concept of zone of genius. And that's when I realized this is my sweet spot. It's not just that I'm good at it, it's that it lights me up. And when I say that I geek out about data and I geek out about PowerPoint, there is no shame in that anymore, because it's true. And so, like, if I don't hone in my truths, how does anybody else know what I'm good at?
That's so important, right? Like, just be yourself, your authentic self in life. So let's go back. You said 5 years ago, you decided to go independent in that realm. A lot of our listeners, and predominantly, by the way, my business, not my actual podcast, but my actual business, Black Mammoth, I run all the financials for women and minority business owners. And so in that realm a lot. How was it being a woman in, I will say, a more corporate setting and going, you know what, I'm going to go independent? How was that for you mentally of that switch?
I mean, are we allowed to use inappropriate language on here?
It
was a total mind fuck because I didn't choose to do that. I had the rug pulled under me when I was 8.5 months pregnant, and my position was terminated. I was working for this startup. They didn't mean it in harm, but they had a business to run, and their financials were not in line, and my position was the next one to be cut. And so it was a total mind fuck. I think there's still like PTSD of some of my yearning, or, you know, like we said, talking about value, because sometimes when that happens and you're so shell shocked and also dependent, or kind of, you know, I'm an optimistic person, but these guys are good guys. They didn't mean to do this to me. It's just the way things go. But it was kind of at that moment, or really after my daughter was born, that I was like, I'm never going back to an agent. I'm not going back to work for somebody, and it's never going to look the same. But you know, it taps back into my whole kind of youth and childhood of like believing in myself and being poured into and being loved and being seen, and then, you know, being celebrated. And I remember vividly standing in my kitchen one day and being like, would I bet on myself? And I was like, fuck yeah, I will totally bet on myself. And what does that need to be? Is it financially? Is it giving myself space to figure it out? Is it telling people, like, being vulnerable and being like, I'm doing this. This is weird. Can I help you? How can I help you? Or this is what I want to do. Do you need help, or do you know somebody? And so, yeah, it was crazy, but it was like the best. Looking back, that was like the best thing that ever happened to me.
One, that's amazing. Two, my wife just went through that exact same thing and works for my firm now, which we'll have her on an episode later, but very, very much similar. Her concerns, and this is usually when I work with a lot with women, is that it's more layers to than just like crap. There's like, you start when you were pregnant at the time. So you're definitely were like, well, how am I going to raise this kid? How am I going to take care of him?
How am I going to go to the next doctor's appointment? Like, do I have insurance coverage? Like, it was like so simple, things like that. Yes.
How did you get through that so well, right? Because it sounds like you went through it smoothly, flying colors, and like there was no doubt. What were the struggles of that?
Okay. So I got, again, being curious and realizing that like it would do no good for me to not necessarily hold it in and like but like to not lean on the people that I had in my bubble. Like I called people when I felt down or when my mind, or when I caught myself in my mind. I used the avenues that I already had kind of established to create some healthier, now I can say habits, but like simple point. At that point I was part of Core Power Yoga, and I was going unlimited all the time and paying for a membership. Well, I asked them if they had a trade program, and I started trading my time for yoga sessions. Well, that helped save a couple $100 every month. It was the little things, right? I started, instead of being like, oh shit, I don't work anymore. It was like, okay, well, my son's not going to go to full-time daycare anymore. Guess what? Now I get a little bit more time with him, as you know, and like as a mom, you get really sentimental. So I was like, this is where we're at. I negotiated my computer, so I didn't feel that financial. So for me, it was like, it was mentally, but it was the financial stress that I really was trying to navigate. I got really, started cooking a lot more, just cutting back and realizing these important things. But it really was kind of reminding myself it's just a season, and having a team, my husband, my parents, my sisters, and good friends who I could lean on, who I could say like, can you go on a walk? Like, you can't go to lunch. I don't really want to grab coffee. I'm pregnant, but like, can you go on a walk? Can you do something with me so I'm not alone? Because when I was alone, I knew I got the thoughts. I also, to be honest, my daughter's pregnancy had a couple little hiccups or scares. She's totally fine and everything was fine. But it gave me a really amazing perspective that like, and I think even now with where life is and there's a lot going on in the world, is like, if we're healthy and we have people we love close by, like that's really all that matters. And you can get caught up and you can get all these things, but it's really about like, it's really about who you've got in your corner, and if you're healthy, and how you can create that happiness around it.
Truly does take a team. Like everyone says, it takes a village. It does. You have to have a team. No successful person's done it alone. So you definitely have to have a team. And you also, I say that our lives are integrated. I mean, meaning our mental, our physical, and our fiscal lives are very much integrated, right? My industry loves to say that take your emotions out of your decisions, right? Your financial decisions. Make business decisions without emotions. It's physically impossible. We are humans.
Yeah.
Everything we do is driven by emotions. It's just a matter of how those emotions drive you and how you can recognize those and make good decisions. My thing I always say within those three avenues of our health is the fact that if one of them's off, the whole thing's off. Something will occur. And if you're not prepared to deal with that, then you're going to miss an opportunity in life that could have took your family, your life to another level. And everyone's like, that's, well, you're just lucky. No, I'm preparing. I got to prepare my body. I got to prepare my mind. I got to be fiscally prepared. But if one of those is off, I won't be prepared when someone comes knocking, the next opportunity happens, you name it, to take my life to a different degree. And that doesn't always mean financially. It means a partnership, a relationship, but if you're not there, then that's not going to happen. Therefore, you're going to say I'm unlucky, and then you're going to feel alone. And it's just a backward spiral, but don't do that, right? Focus on those things you can get through.
And following up with that, I believe that part of how I've built my business and where I'm at today is because I want to be honest, vulnerable, true. And I listen to my emotions. I have I use air quotes, but I have terminated contracts on my own with clients in different businesses because I just didn't feel like it was right, because I know that I'm giving myself the space, the energy, and the time to focus on the things that matter. And guess what? When I find a client that's more aligned with my energy, with my compassion, with my empathy, the work is so much better. Like, if you're not loving what you do, I think your audience is like probably on the path to want to love how they live their life. Don't get me wrong. I know people who their job is a job and then they have all these outside passions. Somebody asked me once, what's your hobby? I'm like, I don't know if I have a hobby. Like, I'm building this business that I'm so passionate about that, like, besides being a mom, that's where a lot of my energy goes. And so I've built my life around the things that matter most, and showing my emotions and balancing my mental health and my wellness and having that financial security of what it should look like is critical. And like anything that affects that, to your point, it sets off the wobble, and like, we're not prepared. So yes.
No, we're not. We're not prepared. Well, you touched upon it, so we're going to transition. Business, PowerPoints. What does it all mean? Like, what do you?
I can't believe it. I love that you just vomited. Dry heave.
I did. I remember PowerPoints, and they're the most disgusting things like I can remember making, and took so much time. Literally have not touched one in probably a decade. So bring us there. Help
Yep.
us understand how, one, you have a business doing it, and two, the importance of the PowerPoint in 2025.
Yeah. Okay. So how I kind of said at the beginning, I kind of got into it because I loved what it was an avenue for me to use my creative strategic concepting, like vision. And I just said that so wrong. So maybe the better way to say it is the place PowerPoint allows me to be a creative strategic thinker with limitations and boundaries. And going back to some of our like these life lessons, like boundaries make us feel safe, but they give us the opportunity to push beyond them. And so PowerPoint was this bubble. But what it did, and what it always was when I could set something up, when I could design something, because I know I've got the design chops, and then I made somebody who this presentation was for, who was the presenter, who was the business leader. When they saw that come to life, I felt their energy, that smile on the end. That's how it got started. It was so fun to make those wins for other people. And so, like I kind of mentioned, in 2023, my consulting business, or my general design, I was a creative freelance general designer from 2019 to 2023, and I only worked on referrals. It was amazing. I don't even think my LinkedIn was updated that I was doing stuff. Like maybe it said I was freelance, but like I doubt it, because I was embarrassed in a way, or like I just didn't want people to know that I was looking for work. Mm-hmm. That's totally different now. But anyway, so I got curious and I realized, okay, if I want to keep doing this, I have choices. I do not want to go back I don't want to work for somebody else anymore. I know I can do this. What should it look like? But more importantly, like, why don't I do the work I want to do? And I had a client who I did a lot of presentations for. They were a communications agency. I still work with them from today. They were one of the first clients I ever had when I went off on my own. And I was like, I love when I get to do these type of projects. And so I actually started I called them curious conversations, and I called people in my network, a lot of people in the creative field, and I asked them what was inspiring them, what they were working on. And I just kind of kept getting this notion that like, it's okay to tap into something that like other people want to vomit about. Like, right. I used to think PowerPoint was a bad word too, right? Especially as a creative, like you're in Adobe, you're not in PowerPoint. But what I realized was by the end of that year, and after I realized this was my zone of genius, because it wasn't just that I was good at it, but it was the place that I shined so bright in my work, that I took myself out of being in this box of creatives looking for jobs, trying to stand out differently, being, leader, creative directors or whatever. And I didn't enjoy that work as much. But when I said all I do is PowerPoint, I now can offer my services to so many more people. And to be honest, I'm working with some really, I'm working with executives and business leaders and senior leadership and C-suites and venture capitalists and founders, right? The CFOs, the CMOs, the COOs. And these people are so brilliant. And the way that they think is so different than me. And when we can collaborate, I keep learning and I keep growing. And they are really good at saying, I know I have a story to tell. And they're really good at presenting, because obviously they got somewhere by sharing their story but they're like, well, I don't know how to make it look good. How do I make it look good? And when I can help somebody, they're already taking care of sounding good. When I can help them look good, their confidence soars, their trust, their credibility, their ability to move their business or create those needed decisions and investments are huge. And it's such a win. And so that's how I got here. I realized the power of niching actually opened the door for so many more things, and I won't ever look back.
All right, PowerPoint queen. How does it all work, right? I know how PowerPoint works and I know I can build them, but it sounds to me like you take more of the strategic marketing brain side of it,
yeah,
the storytelling side, as opposed to like, if I word vomited it to you, this is what I need, and you just kind of pull it. What is your process and what does it look like?
Okay, I'm going to ask you to stop, because I probably am going to never take breaks because I get so excited about it. So pause me when we need. It starts with, when my clients come to me, I say, who's your audience? What do you want them to think, feel, and know? Think, feel, and do at the end, right? You got to start with the end in mind. It's just like goal setting. If you don't know where you're going, how are you going to make all these little steps towards it and celebrate all these wins along the way? You got to create these bookmarks or these key points within this process. So they got to know that. And also they got to know how it's being delivered, because a keynote presentation is very different than a a company update or then a team meeting, but they're still as important of stories because you're talking to people. And that's also the beauty of presentations is they're one-on-one conversations. Marketing is one to many. You're sending it to a vastness. People don't know, you don't know what they're doing when they see it. And now we're so used to like seeing so much that we scroll through it and we push it to the side. But when you can have a real conversation with somebody, when you can create that authentic connection, I think that's one of our most universal truths is we all want to feel seen, heard, right, and connected. So that's how I use PowerPoints. Then the next step is understanding and making sure that their narrative is set. I am not a content writer. I am not a content creator. I'm a really good refiner, really good at refining the rules. Hence, I think why I love PowerPoint too, because I can break a lot of rules that, they might have boxed me in on typically. But I'll work with the client again to set up their narrative to make sure they've got the end in mind. And then it's just like a beautiful story. I think of my daughter. She's 5. She don't know how to read, but she loves reading. Why? Because the power of a well-crafted story to guide you, to make you feel something, to see something, to pay attention, and then to do something at the end is so powerful. You don't need words all the time. Now, a lot of corporate presentations, of course you have words and you have a lot of words. And that's where the beauty of design comes in. And it's understanding very simply, breaking your slides down. And I use the overall principles, simplicity, consistency, and intentionality. And what does that mean? You want 1 to 2 key points per slide. If you have more than that, break it up to a couple slides. It gives your audience the space to digest information and to listen to what you're saying versus reading ahead or getting lost because they're not paying attention because they're overwhelmed by what your visuals are. Again, your visuals should be the support of who you are. You're the star of the show. And so once you have those simple things and you have that balance, you have the space to give some visuals or give yourself space to design your visuals. It's about communication hierarchy. Headlines should be short and really hit on what that slide is about, right? It's not just a summary. It's Q2 results that led us to do this. Short. It's not that long, right? It's a few words, but it makes such an impact because again, as the audience member, I can follow along. And if I do go on my own tangent in my brain, I can come back very quickly. It's using bolding and stylizing your bullets and italicizing things that help audiences stay focused. They understand what's important, what's being supported. There's also this beautiful exercise I always encourage people to do is keep cutting words until it doesn't make sense anymore. And then you add that last word back in. And that's usually your sweet spot for how much content you need on a slide. I mean, ideally it's like 6 to 8 lines per slide. But again, sometimes in different industries too, those just aren't the norm. And we're used to thinking that if we over communicate, it actually shows our credibility. But there's actually this cool confidence that if you don't overshare, you actually show how good you really are at knowing this information because you're sharing the right information and they're not going to ask you the questions because they're confused. Does that make sense? Yeah. And then with design, again, I can say it's simple, but it's being simple and it's being consistent. Pick a color, use that every time you mention that product or that quarter and bring that through. Our brains do this amazing thing of connecting the puzzle pieces when we set it out properly. So let your audience do the work. That's not that hard for them, but when you set it up for them to succeed, they will. Pictures can say 1,000 words, but pictures don't just have to be pictures. They can be data graphs. They can be illustrations. They can be little icons, color blocking. Giving yourself the ability to break content up and make it digestible is critical to really stylizing and designing your slides for impact. And then it's delivery, but at that point, it should be a no-brainer because you spent time to know your audience. You've crafted your narrative. You feel really good about it. And you have this beautiful presentation. You've already created this trust and this simplicity of what your story can be, and you get to shine. And it's awesome.
Sounds like it takes a lot of time though. Like I remember building PowerPoints, it takes forever.
That's what I save my clients. I will say I help my clients, right? I have my investment in client time from kickoff to final delivery is usually under 3 hours versus 20 hours of their work, right? So it's the value, I'm giving back time, there's no, and now they get to do the work they want to do versus being overwhelmed and being stuck in this world of PowerPoint that they usually don't like either.
That's amazing. One, your speed and efficiency, but that's usually the hook, the hiccup of all of it, right? Is it just takes too much time. I mean, I do that like even with my own client stuff. Like I don't have a PowerPoint. I don't have a lot of salesy materials because it's me, like selling myself. So if I can speak to you and connect with you, that's really what matters. But people like deliverables. But every time I think about doing one of those, I'm like, I don't have the time, and the time's important. So that's amazing that you shave off. Oh, hell, for me, it'd feel like a year's worth, but for others, maybe just 10 to 20 hours. But for me,
yeah. Well, and then the return on investment is so much. Like one of my favorite case studies is I got a white paper, like Word document outline of slides. I think we ended up with 17 slides at the end. It was under 3 hours of time because every time we met, we were very efficient. I don't require my clients to like write emails crafting their feedback. Like, get me on a Zoom call to your point. Let's talk through it. Let me show you my screen. Let's iterate together. He used it in one presentation and he got $300,000 investment secured. He spent $5,000. So he not only saved his time, but the payoff and the ease of what he sold, that was in one presentation. Like, you can't make that stuff up. It's awesome.
No. You cannot. And that's flawless right there. That's just flawless. I like asking this question. Okay. So we've been through your story. We've been through what you do every day for business. And I ask my clients this and almost every guest this. What was your first money memory?
Money memory. That's an interesting one. Okay. So I used to dance a lot, and down the street from my dance studio was a pharmacy. And I remember my mom giving me like $1 on Saturdays to go and get snacks during our dance breaks, because we would be there for a few hours, but we'd always have like a little hiccup where we could go and, get our sugar crush. And I just remember buying Airheads and like trying to figure, because that was like, I got 4 Airheads for $1. So like, that's one of my earliest memories. Yeah. That's so funny.
When you reflect back on that memory, first of all, you can't spend $1 anymore and get almost like any type of candy. I love inflation for that. When you think back about that money memory and the emotions that brought it up, how do you think that's affected, or negatively or positively, decisions through finances throughout your life?
Yeah, I think it's about the value, to your point of like what I can get and how far this is going to go. Another early memory, I just remember a friend, and we were older, but we were shopping on our own. So we were in our teens, and she was like, will I wear this shirt 3 times? Because is it worth $10? Let's say it was $30. Is it worth $10 every time I wear it? And that makes so much more sense. Now, as an adult and as a parent, money and the way I spend it, it feels so different now than when it was in my own. I mean, even money memories, like I used to hate leftovers until I left college, and I was like, leftovers are great. You want to send me home with food from some home cooking leftovers? Even better. But yes, I will always take leftovers. How far can I make this stretch? But yeah, I think there's such an adventure in trying to be not frugal, but be mindful of how we spend. Yeah. And now as a business owner, even more so, because it looks different, right? You don't have that security coming in every 2 weeks.
Right. Absolutely. That was always a fun one. That was always
fun. I love it. But yeah, I'm sure there's earlier memories, but that one's a good one.
Because
maybe the broken piggy banks I used to have too, but I don't remember the money in them. I just remember breaking them.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I bet you just remember breaking them.
You know what? Sorry. I also remember making a cash register with my dad, like old school. Like it was just a box with spaces that looked like that looked like for dollars and coins, and playing store with my best friend growing up. So like money was fun then. It wasn't about spending, but yeah. Anyway, that's funny.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. As we wrap it up, last question that I ask of you is, what is one concept, idea, strategy, whatever you want to call it, that you can provide for our listeners that will help them take that next step in their journey, whether it's their life journey, wealth journey, business journey, who knows? What's one thing you can leave them with?
Stay curious and ask a lot of questions. There's no shame in asking or wanting to know why or how or who, for sure. Those conversations are the best.
Stay curious. I love that. My brain works that way too. So I'm sure we could go down a lot of avenues, because I know how things work and why. And then I move on. Like that's.
Yes. Oh my God. Just had this conversation. But what I think it allows you to do is be a lifelong learner. And like, isn't that the best? Like, I don't ever want to be an expert. I mean, I want to be an expert at things, but like, I never want to stop learning, like getting more fine tuned in the things that I'm passionate about. is so fun. But yeah, if I throw them to the wayside, I still learn something. I'm sure it will pack me. I just don't. Yeah, I don't hold on to it. I love that.
Absolutely. Well, how can everyone reach you? Because we always tell everybody, hey, like, share, subscribe, not for the algorithm, because we don't believe in that shit, because it never works for us anyway. It's more along the lines of because you're communicating to us and we are here to help and we want to help you as much as we can. So how can people reach out to you? How can they find you? What's the best way?
So my website is a great place to start to learn more about my business. I am emilyschneider.com. But I also am super active and love connecting and networking on LinkedIn. So if you want to, that might be a better place for this audience to connect with, is really just to have those conversations. And I know you're not into algorithms, but I just love supporting people on there. And there's so many great ways to learn on that platform as well.
There is. I have a beef with algorithms lately. I keep getting the wrong things in the wrong time.
Well, and then going back to your emotional connection to it, right? Like, am I valuing myself based on these things? So I agree with you on that, but there's something really powerful about being connected and being able to support somebody and being like, I like this. This is great. Thank you for sharing.
From wherever too. I think that's valid. Like anywhere. Just reach out, connect with good people. So, well, we appreciate your time. We look forward to many, many more episodes and shows with you, especially when I know that I'll need you as a PowerPoint. Maybe we just do an episode and we go through you creating a PowerPoint for me.
Oh, that would be fun. And I probably should do that. It's kind of an oxymoron to be talking about a visual storytelling and never showing the visuals. But, that sounds amazing. Thank you so much, Joey.
It was sponsored by Black Mammoth. Any awards, rankings, or recognition by unaffiliated third parties or publications are in no way indicative of the advisor's future performance or any individual client's investment success. No award, ranking, or recognition should be construed as a current or past endorsement of Black Mammoth. Information regarding specific awards, rankings, or recognitions is available on the Black Mammoth website, www.blackmammoth.com. All investment strategies have the potential for profit or loss. Investment strategies such as asset allocation, diversification, or rebalancing do not assure or guarantee better performance and cannot eliminate the risk of investment losses. There are no guarantees that a portfolio employing these or any other strategy will outperform a portfolio that does not engage in such strategies. This broadcast should not be construed by any client or prospective client as a solicitation to effect or attempt to effect transactions and securities, or the rendering of personalized investment advice due to various factors, including changing market conditions. The information discussed in this broadcast may no longer be reflective of current positions or recommendations. While information presented is believed to be factual and up-to-date, Black Mammoth do not guarantee its accuracy, and it should not be regarded as a complete analysis of the subjects discussed. The tax and estate planning information discussed is general in nature and is provided for informational purposes only, and should not be construed as legal or tax advice. Listeners should consult an attorney or tax professional regarding their specific legal or tax situation. Past performance is not indicative of future results.